I was talking to myself there for a little bit. I was pretending like you guys were coming in late to the class, and then I realized I forgot to hit go live. So it is what it is. Let me know if you're in. Let me know if you're in. If you're in, you're in. If you're not in, get out, you know? Let me know if you're in. Here we go. I was talking to myself there for a little. Now we know we're up. That's how I can double check that I'm alive and well and talking to you guys. It's how I know it's going through, as long as I can hear it come through on my end first. Okay, so this is what's going down. Someone sent me a question. It was an older video when I was talking about EL Zone and getting into the... Let me think about how I'm going to do this right now. I was going to bring up the comment, but I don't care. The question was, Justin, what do I do if I have both skin tones in the shot, right? So they're basically asking lighter skin tones, darker skin tones. Yo, Eon Snarfus, in like Flynn. All right, number one. Number two, Jason DeHoos. Whoop, whoop. Jason DeHoos. Oh, Mandrew. Hey, Justin, greetings from Indonesia. Damn, 1, 2, 3, there it is. All right, the class is in. We are now in session. So, somebody, I hope you all are doing good tonight, by the way. Good to see people in here interacting. It's always good. Okay, so these are the clips we have here. Well, one of them's a clip. The other is just screen grabs, okay? Basically, they asked me, how do they expose for lighter skin tones and darker skin tones at the same time? I guess they were having difficulty with this. And also, this was kind of on an EL Zone video. Well, you know, a lighting video where EL Zone was brought up. It was one of those older ones where I was doing with the red Komodo. If you remember, there was like a 4-part series I did with the red Komodo a while back. And so it came up in that video. So I thought, you know what, let's talk about that, because I also grabbed this. This is the Nikon ZR test footage, their skin tone test. You can download this clip as well. It's, you know, the Nikon Enhanced Red or whatever it's called. And this is straight out of the Nikon ZR. But I want us, the reason that now I put a LUT on this, okay? So that's the log, and then that's the LUT. But we're going to analyze this image because, you know, this is similar, right? They're testing for both skin tones. But notice, you know, we're going to kind of analyze the differences between how they light the different skin tones for a test shot versus like a real production. And then this is like its own breed of production, right? Because one battle after another is not very Hollywood polished, as they say. However, though, the main reason I chose this is because in this particular light and in this particular mood or vibe, dare I say, vibe, right? But this was actually a movie shot on film. So it could be a combination of the film stock they chose in conjunction with the actual lighting here. But she looks almost on par with him in regards to skin tone. But in reality, we know that she is darker than him, right? Not much, though, but she is still a different complexion. But in this lighting, you wouldn't be able to tell. But however, I want us to pay attention to the staging of this, the blocking of this, right? Because blocking is super important, obviously, for the lighting. When I say blocking, if you don't know what that means, what it basically means is where the actors go, right? Where they move, how they move around. They go from point A, then, okay, they're going to walk in. They go to the couch. Then they're going to go into the kitchen. They grab a knife. Then they're going to come over here, right? It's basic actions, right? If you don't know what blocking is, it's probably because that you work like with me on lower budget projects where directors are sometimes it's their first time directing, right? So many times. That's how I always know when I'm working with a director that doesn't actually know how to direct, and not their fault. They just don't have the experience of a director that knows what the fuck they're doing. And I always know because they never block a scene, right? Instead, they'll run around the room showing you while telling you what's going to happen. Oh, he's going to go over here, and then she's going to go over here, and then she's going to come over here, and he's going to sit down here, and they're just running around like a chicken with their head cut off, and you're just standing there going, oh, and in my brain I go, oh, this is a director that doesn't know what they're doing. This is a director that's clearly never directed before. Because the blocking is not just for the lighting and the camera department, it's also for the actors, right? They're fucking artists too, right? The first thing that's going to happen if you get an actor that really prides themselves on being an actor and they take their art seriously, and if they walk in and they haven't had a chance to do blocking, and then they're just going to say, well, no, I don't want to do that. That doesn't make sense. I'm going to do this instead. Right. And they're going to do that because they're the fucking actor. Right. So there's a great short of this out right now, actually, with Shia LaBeouf and Francis Ford Coppola arguing over blocking. And it's because Shia is trying to change I think he's even adding like a whole different setup to the scene. And Francis is just letting him kind of run wild. That is more of like a pissing match, once you get to that level. But the reality is, right, you want to encourage your directors to block it with the actual actors so you can sit there and think ahead of like, okay, so if he's gonna, if for instance, this shot right here, right, they go, how's this gonna go down? Okay, they're gonna be in the bed, right? And the idea is like this, it's this harsh sunlight coming through the window, right? Well, now you got to think like, okay, so who are we going to park closest to, like who are we going to park under the light, right? And there's a lot that goes into thinking about that. Skin tones might be one of them. The second one might be, well, what character does it make sense to hit with the hard light in this particular scene, right? It would, because you got to imagine here, right? You got to imagine that this would be a lot different if he was the one getting blasted in the golden hour light or whatever this is, dawn or nighttime. I don't know which is which, but right. But you understand what I'm saying? Like emotionally, something is going to be different if he's the one getting lit up versus her. But it also informs the audience. It's subtext of lighting. You understand what I'm saying? But also the way that I approach this, I would think about it in terms of like not only that, but also of like, who would it make sense here to get blasted with the light, right? Even if you didn't want to get all foo-foo philosophical about it, like the stuff I just mentioned, the subtext and all that, maybe if you just wanted to stick to the basic reality of it, my brain would go, yeah, I don't think I want to set the white guy getting blasted by the sun here, right? You know what I mean? Like seriously. So there are these things to think about here. And that's what brought me to the Nikon skin tone test, okay? Because this is interesting how they, this is a test, obviously, versus like how they light it. And we'll get to training day because this is a really excellent one as well, because you've got to stick with the reality of you're in a car. You know what I mean? And cars are tricky. Anytime that I'm filming in a car, and what I do is we put, I have my gaffer put Duvetine, spare Duvetine. I have them put it all across the windows on my side of the car, right? That way, it's like, we're shooting, we're very shadow, and they're only getting backlit in the front light through the front windshield. So if I'm in the if I'm in the passenger seat, the passenger window's blacked out. The rear passenger window's blacked out. And then I'll even black out my side of the back window. It's insanely dangerous to do for productions like I work on that don't have a fucking car on a trailer, right? It's super dangerous to do, right? But if you're not driving on any like freeway or something, you'll be okay usually. Right. But I do that because I like I like the way it looks. But the reality is that's not what being in a car looks like. You know what I mean? Because look at this, right? Look at this. This is a prime example of that, right? You understand being in a car is like being in a fishbowl, right? But I don't care about the reality of it, right? There's a certain look that I like to do inside of a car, right? But on top of that, I think they kind of did that here, but they also kind of didn't, right? Because he is a lot hotter than what he would look like if the window was just completely blacked out, right? You understand what I'm saying? So anyways, I think it's three. I saw it as three great examples of lighting for different skin tones in the same shot. But I found this one really particularly interesting because I don't really agree with how they did this, but also it's not even, in my opinion, it's not an accurate test off the bat, right? And why I say that is because this middle gray right here is about a half a stop over, right? It's a half a stop to one stop over. Now you might be going, Justin, well, how the fuck do you know that? Well, because don't forget, this is the fucking real raw, right? This is the red RG310, right? So yes, I was able to put the EL zone on this. You understand what I'm saying? But even without the EL zone, you don't need that to see what's going on here, right? Because we also have something built into Resolve, right? And then And then, so that's their exposure thing in Resolve. And then if I turn on the LUT to, like, if you want to kind of see the reality of it, because you're probably supposed to look at it with some sort of color on it, right? Look, dudes, just so you know, 40 IRE is middle gray. Why is there middle gray, not middle gray? Look at this. That's where they put middle gray. They place in middle gray like a stopover easily. So first of all, okay, so the way I work, if I'm doing a real test, why am I already going to be overexposing one stop? Why are we starting like that? So I think there is a little bit of discrepancy here with this specific Nikon test to begin with, because, and look, I didn't set out to do this, right? The video is to talk about different skin tones. I just still happen to have this footage. But when I started analyzing this, I go, wait, why are they overexposing one stop, right? Now, if this was a creative production that was like some high-key morning show or something, it would make complete sense to overexpose by one stop, because that's the look of it. But this is a fucking skin tone test. This is a test, right? This is a fucking test, right? Now, I'm sorry that I'm cussing like this, but I think what happens is I get very passionate about this because people give me shit all the time. Even my most recent video. Okay, here we go. The Sony 16-35 f4. I did this goofy video, my most recent long form video, right? It's just me fucking off with the lens, right? And literally the second comment I get on the video is someone complaining about how bad the video is in terms of like quality and stuff. And in my head, I'm like, this is what happened here. We don't actually watch real tests anymore. What we watch is paid fucking ads of people pretending they're doing a test or pretending they're doing a review, but it's not. It's a paid ad, right? This is the problem. So now when you're all on YouTube and you're watching what you think is a review or you're watching what you think is a test, well, it's not, because the people that have created that quote unquote test and quote unquote review, they've already been paid under the table, right? So they want to knock it out the park, which is fine. They should. But what I have a problem with is I go, well, that's not a fucking test, right? Get weird with it. Get weird. Get fucking funky with it. That should be what the test is, right? So like, if in other words, like I did my goofy video on the little lens. If Sony would have paid me $10,000, do you guys really think that I would go out there and just sit in the fucking bike path with the lens? No, because I first of all, I wouldn't be allowed to do that, right? But, like they're expecting you to highlight the thing, showcase it. Well, I'm sorry. Are we making a showcase video here? Or are we making a real test video here? Are we making a real honest review here? Right? This is my whole thing about it. So I get really annoyed, like when people talk shit, but then when a huge company like Nikon presents this footage to us and they go, wow, look at our skin tone test. And then you go, wait a second. Why is the skin tone test flawed to begin with? Why was it overexposed one stop? That's not even an accurate test. So what the fuck was the point of this, right? So then I really start thinking crazy shit where I'm like, well, is there something wrong with this Nikon enhanced red footage that we have to overexpose it by one stop for the normal bland ass skin tone test? I'm really confused. You know what I mean? I don't know. You guys tell me. You guys tell me. But beyond that, we don't need to get lost in the weeds too much about this shit, right? The point is it's overexposed one stop to begin with. So it's already flawed to begin with, right? In my opinion. So what we could do is come over here and we're just going to drop it down one stop then. Let's make it fucking normal. Well, now we know why, right? But also this LUT. This LUT's a little gnarly, right? This is courtesy of Juan Malara right here. Juan Malara's Komodo to Alexa LUT. And we can turn this off, right? But look. Okay. You understand what I'm saying? I'll put it back on 800. Let's turn the LUT on. But what I think what's nice is when we do expose middle gray correctly, I think what's nice here to notice is that, well, one, it really points out where all of our sources are, right? You can certainly see where all your sources are when you're exposed at perfect middle gray versus when you're, pushing middle gray over. Now look. Okay, like this is where I go like, dude, in my head, right? Okay, let's pretend that I had to do this, right? the first thing my brain would say is, why are we putting the pale little white girl the closest to the source? Right? That's the first fucking thing my head thinks of. I go, what? Like, we should flip them, right? But they don't flip them. I don't know why. They put the little pale girl the closest to the source, right? So now, the light that is already one stop over middle gray, now it's hitting the little pale porcelain white girl the hardest. And what happens is she gets pushed beyond, right? She gets pushed beyond one or half a stop over. She gets like 2 stops over, right? And then the downside is they got our friend parked the furthest from the light, but actually he's not bad, right? He's actually not bad. Let me turn this on, right? But he still is a little hotter than what he normally would be. Again, this is a test, right? So then what happens is, inevitably, I think what happened is they start freaking out, and then they brought this fill light over here. Do you see that? His forehead is like 2 to 3 stops over. So I think, like, when I see something like this, I would just go, oh, well, just flip the models, you know, put the little girl, I'm sorry, put the woman on the right hand side, right? Just flip flop them, right? So now keep that in mind, right? Keep that thought in mind, and now come over here and look at one battle after another. Exactly what I was saying before. Did they put Leo in the striking sun? No. Now I understand there could be multiple different reasons for choosing that, but I do think skin tone is one of them. I really do. But also, I think for a movie like this, it's obviously more character driven than, you know, skin tone driven. But I'm just saying, right? Because here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think messes people up, because this used to mess me up in the beginning as well, right? In the beginning, you know, you think of the exposure scale. If we go over here and we turn this on, right? Let's turn this on real quick. Let's blow this up, right? In the beginning, I'm going to get to the comments in a minute here. I just need to finish my train of thought. But you know, in the beginning, you know, because we're taught that way. We're taught like, okay, yeah, the darker skin tones need to be placed half a stop to 1 stop under middle gray. The lighter skin tones are placed half a stop, 1 stop over middle gray, right? That's how we're taught. And what happens is, though, I think there's some sort of disconnect that happens in the beginning when you go on set, right? And you start messing around with meters or something, or you pretend to, or whatever you do to try to figure out exposure, right? When you're on set and you start getting a little confused, right? And I think the disconnect is because the light that you're metering on a meter is not exactly the same concept of the light gathering for the lens or the camera meter either, right? Because the camera has its own meter, right? I mean, I know in my own workflow, I'm constantly battling my camera's meter with the real meter, right? And the reason why is because these cameras, every camera has a specific reason for the metering, right? And this brings me to the Nikon shit of them overexposing 1 stop, right? Because it could be because that is actually perhaps where the Nikon ZR's internal meter for middle gray is probably half a stop over what a normal fucking meter would give you, right? It's not the first camera to do that. You know, these Sony cameras that I have, they tend to need to be brought back from what the meter is telling me. Okay, so it's almost the opposite of this Nikon ZR situation, right? Because by you know, and I can only make these assumptions with the facts that I'm given. You understand what I'm saying? So if they give me a skin tone test, and that skin tone test is for whatever reason putting middle gray at half a stop to 1 stop over, then that tells my brain that, oh, that means the Nikon ZR's internal spot meter is just placing middle gray half a stop to 1 stop over. Why? I don't know. I'm not the engineer of that camera, but there probably are specific reasons for doing that. Meanwhile, something like this A7C II that I'm filming with this right now, and most Sony cameras in my experience, A7S III, FX30, they all do it, right? They will go the other way, right? So in other words, like right now, right, if I take a reading in this scenario right here that I'm in, let's go main full screen here. If I just take a reading like this, dome to lens, right, I'm getting a 1.8, right? A 1.8. Well, now that's pretty damn good because my lens right now is at 1.9, okay? And I am at 1.9. So the meter is saying I'm not even, according to the meter, I'm not even barely, I guess you could say I'm almost hitting middle gray according to the meter. But the reality is when I look at my camera, which is set to highlight priority mode, okay, that is pushed 2/3 over middle gray, right? So that is where the camera is placing not even middle gray yet. It's 2/3 over middle gray, but the reality is, no, we're not even sitting at middle gray in here. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why usually you have to mentally calibrate your meters to your camera, right? Because they're all going to be different. They're all going to be different. They just are. There's all kinds of reasons why engineers do that shit, right? Anyways, I know we're kind of like getting off the weeds and jumping around back and forth here a little bit. Let's go back to this. Did this freeze up? Oh, no, wait. Okay, let me try to get to these comments now because I got carried away there for a minute. Man, doing good, even better, learning from a pro. I don't know, man. I don't know. Jonathan Ayo, San Diego, Carlin San Diego, or they block it with stand-ins. Yeah, but the reality is, no, dude, hold on. Who said that? Carlin San Diego. No. The stand-ins don't do the blocking. No, that's not how it works. No. The stand-ins are brought in after the blocking's been done. Okay, the blocking is 100% done with the real actors. The stand-ins have to come in and they have to know the blocking, but very rarely do the stand-ins do the blocking. And I know because I've been a lot of people's stand-in. I was Aaron Paul's stand-in for a good period of time. Okay, so this is how I know how it's actually done. Okay, and plus two, I've acted in my fair share of Lifetime movies and shit like that as well, Hallmark shit. So, but no, the actors 100% do the blocking. Then the stand-ins usually just have to sit or stand in the main point of action where most of the stuff takes place. If every now and then you might get to walk up the stairs or something, but very rarely. The fairest skin person so they can glow. What up, Trevor? Who matched the actor's skin tone? The stand-ins, exactly. The stand-ins do have to match the skin tone. Usually, it's not that crazy anymore with LEDs and everything, but if it's shot on film, 100%. What up, Stuart Monroe in the house? One of the cool things Spike Lee used to do is play with beams of really strong light in frames. Oh, yeah. Spike Lee, also Belly. Finally, I saw that they're finally kind of celebrating Belly, one of my favorite movies. We might have to hop over and look at it, but let's put a pin in that for now. I love Hard Light. Not that that's a Spike Lee movie, but it just talking to Spike Lee reminded me of Belly. I love Hard Light. It has a place. Yeah, okay, yeah, they're talking about this. Okay, yeah, most car scenes look ridiculous to me in terms of lighting. Right. He probably would really think mine looks ridiculous. Is that to expose him? Okay, hold on. I think maybe they did this to hold on. Okay, hold on. I think what up, Habib? I think maybe they did this to cover the flaws of the camera, maybe. No, I think it's literally that the camera's meter is just overexposing just a little bit for whatever reason. It's pushing a middle gray half a stop to one stop over. That's where the ZR is placing middle gray for whatever reason. Here's the reality. We don't need to know that. I guess you do. Yeah, you should know that. If you're taking your lighting seriously, right? And the only reason why you have to know this shit really is if you're actually doing a real script with shot reverse shot and lots of coverage in one scene. That's where continuity matters the most, right? In the narrative world, right? In terms of we want to make sure that we're not, that our lighting levels aren't all over the place from setup to setup. And most people would think that's a given, but it's not. It's just not for a number of reasons. Because things move, shit moves. The world moves, people move, you go to lunch, you come back, shit moves, right? And every time shit moves, there's going to be some changes, right? So that's why it's good just to be able just to go, boom, what was our key giving us? Oh yeah, it's been a 2.8. Okay, let's keep it at a 2.8. That's why I say I've kind of myself gone back to the meter because it's so simple and quick, a million times quicker than EL Zone ever dreamed of being. Is that, okay, let's see. I think, okay, your 16:5 video is legit. Most vignette tests are just against plain white, and it makes it seem like you don't notice until you're filming absolutely nothing. Doing it on the sky was smarter. Yeah, just everything, I'm just fucking off with the lens, I just wish there was more of that. But you know, and the only reason why, why I get upset about it is because it's like, dude, it's like, it's almost impossible now to find it. And the only way to find something out about a lens or something that I'm truly interested in, I got to go to a blog and see a photographer use it, because it's so hard to find you basically have to find someone with a brand new channel that hasn't been like brand hoard out yet. Right. Because they, otherwise, it might be an anomaly like me, but I don't know too many guys like me, right? Because the reality is most people in our camera YouTube world, they literally start their channels so they can do the brand deals. That's literally the goal, right? And that's fine. Look, a lot of people think that I'm just hating on it, like, oh, he's mad at us because we do brand deals. No one cared about your fucking brand deals, dude. I'm mad about it because we just don't have a fucking honest review anymore, right? We can't get that anymore, right? Because everybody's got to make a goddamn commercial nowadays, right? That's the fucking problem that I have with it. Because like I said before, dude, imagine if Roger Deakins was being paid to review every camera and lens. Like, let's just imagine we live in a fucking post-apocalyptic, like, let's just imagine we're in this crazy society. Well, we are, but let's imagine our society is even worse, right? Like, let's just fast forward to like full Handmaid's Tale mode, and let's imagine that only Roger Deakins can do lens tests and camera tests. And guess what? He gets paid very handsomely because he's knighted for his cinematography work, and he's the only one that's allowed to make any videos testing cameras and lenses, right? Dude, people are going to be like, one, people are going to be so tricked and fooled by it that the cameras and lenses will be flying off the shelf. But the real ones will be sitting there going, can we have someone fucking who doesn't have to we need to see what it actually does. That's what I'm trying to get to here. We need to see what it actually really does. We don't need to see someone that is just wanting to flex their skills because they have to, because they're getting paid to. That does nothing for me of someone that's like, but can you break it though? Like, can you break it? Yeah, break the camera, break the image is what I mean though. Like, can you break it? Can you show us something that fucking looks gnarly without you being so nervous that you won't ever get another brand deal ever again? That's the shit I'm talking about, bro. That's why I get so passionate about it. But yet their heads have been twisted around to where they want to blame it on something else, Either way, the point is the Nikon ZR is placing middle gray at half a stop to one stop over. That's what we've come to find out here tonight. But we will get back to this issue of, why, just flip flop the models, right? Like, that's the point too. Like, if you flip flop the models, now we don't have to worry about this thing where we're trying to bring in this fill light. And you wouldn't have this two stop over. Like, look, I know like I'm analyzing a fucking lens test thing here, but it's supposed to be for skin tones. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be for skin tones, and it's kind of flawed out the box in my opinion. You know what I mean? It just is, because what ends up happening is our girl is two stops over, and our guy here, he's not, you know what I mean? Like, this is, and sure, fine. If we're doing Good Morning America, this is fine. This is great for Good Morning America. I don't know if it's great for Training Day, right? I don't know if it's great for One Battle After the Other, right? Now, well, you could say, well, Justin, you have the footage, why don't you just start dropping it down or whatever, Okay, let's put it on 200 then. But it's not quite the same. You know what I mean? It's not quite the same. But I guess it could be. But it was captured it still was captured a half a stop to one stop over. That's the reality of it. You're never going to change that, no matter how much you jump the ISO around. You're never going to change the luminance level, right? That can never be undone. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, this is actually the footage you can get off their website. They're probably going to fucking sue me, but 2, there's a chance the person that did the skin tone test for Nikon was a hack. Maybe, but I don't think so. I think legitimately that I would guess that what's actually going on is that the camera's internal meter is just pushing middle gray a half a stop or almost one stop over. I think that legitimately is probably the case. I can almost guarantee it. And they probably just, nobody really uses meters anymore. Let's be real. No one really uses meters anymore. And so they're probably just completely going off of the monitors and shit, However, I mean, EL Zone should have showed him that, but Maybe they wanted to make it super bright. All right, anyways, let's get caught up here. Boy, I went a little ranty. I apologize, guys. I always do that. Do I have a filter on? Yeah, dude. Is it too gnarly? It's pretty gnarly, huh? The lens is already really old. My lens is like from, this is an old Leica lens. So it's old, dude. And, yeah, and then I put a half black mist filter on it. It's pretty gnarly. I like it though. It almost looks like a net. It almost looks like a net is on there. Anyways, yo, none of the greens matter, but I would have swapped the two out based on height in the negative space. None of the greens matter, but I would have swapped out the two based on height. Oh, I see what you're saying. So rather than because of like who's closest to the source, he would have done it for height. And yeah, that makes sense too. Maybe her head wouldn't be all up in the bushes. For us Nikon shooters, it's well known to overexpose a stop or two to get cleaner results in the shows. Even Panasonic Vlog, in my experience, need to be overexposed by a stop or two for clean. Yeah, that is true, James Cookson. The Panasonic Vlog for sure always needed to be overexposed. Yeah, I think the problem is that, you know, and then we saw with this Sony too, like, you know what I mean? But actually the Sony is like registering way hotter than what's actually going on. But people always, you know, people always do that though. And you know what? I don't know if I 100% believe in that either, bro. Like, I don't know if I believe in like being like, yeah, just feed it light, you know, because it's not film, you know what I mean? Like, but I get it, you know. I used to be such a diehard for like, dude, you're not getting enough light on the sensor. Like, I used to fucking be like the sensor police, and you know, I'm just referring to like a lot of my gaffing days and stuff, and or even when I was operating, you know, because I've done my fair share of just operating, and you know, I'd always like be like, I don't know, dude, it's looking pretty dark, you know, but people don't, you know. They don't give a fuck about it, and the more you realize, you're like, oh, you know, like there's more to it than just like, you know, quote unquote proper exposure, right? And that's how I get around to the penguin video. You know, that's how I have that belief, because I've done so many jobs as an operator and as a gaffer where I see the DP just like really not giving a fuck about exposure levels, right? And I don't know, like, and I know, like, here's the thing too. I think on all of those jobs, we didn't have an actual DIT, right? Because it's different. If you have a real DIT, okay, they're gonna let you know if shit's getting wonky, right? Because they're in the tent, they're watching it. You know what I'm saying? So the DIT will definitely let you know if your shit's getting wild, right? But the jobs I'm on they don't have DITs. Now, a lot of you are probably sitting there going, he doesn't have a media wrangler? That's not a fucking DIT. You know what I mean? You guys know. The real ones know. A media wrangler is not a DIT and vice versa. The DIT is basically doing the live color grading with the, I hope we all here know that, right? Anyways, I like these skin tones. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the skin tones. The problem is though, it's for a test, it's not really accurate. You know what I mean? In my opinion, look, in my opinion, right? But I get it. Like, if you're going by what the camera was showing you, that's what you'd have to do. Look, this was just pulled for reference in terms of like how to light a shot for both you know, lighter and darker skin tones in the shot, right? I just pulled this as a reference, and then I just started like beating the shit out of Nikon for no reason, right? Well, there was a reason, right? There was a reason, because, you know, they're overexposed. But the reality is, I just thought it was interesting to look at that, like a test shot, versus something like, you know, something from an actual production. Look, nothing's in focus here, by the way. This is like a screen grab they had for marketing, and nothing is in focus. Is it me? Like, am I the one out of focus? This looks more in focus than the training day. Look, am I crazy? None of that shit looks in focus, bro. This is like sharp compared to this. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So, but, you know, I mean, here's the thing with the EL zone, you know, exposing for skin tones in the same shot is easier than ever, right? So again, we know that this was, what did I call it? I almost called it G-log. We know that this was, what is it called? Red wide? I don't even remember what the fuck they call it now. Red log. We'll just call it red log. Well, you know what I mean. You know, so we are able to like, you know, you could put the log directly on the small HD and see what it's doing. Wait, am I still on the screen, guys? Yeah, there we go. You know, and you can see, right? You can see, but this is immediately where you see like so much, right? Like you immediately see, okay, the source. We know the source is just blasting the whole wall there. We know that they pushed the middle gray over. That's how we knew that she was 2 stops over. That's how we knew my dude's forehead here was fucking 2 stops over. You know what I'm saying? Um, and regardless of that, like he doesn't need the hot spot, but maybe that was part of the test. You know, honestly, it could have been. They could have gave him that hot spot for a reason. You never know, dude. You never know. Um, but you know, the thing is like, you know, I just had it as an example of, you know, for lighting the same skin tones. And for me, a lot of the times it's just like, for instance, like this example where it's more of I'm always thinking like, well, why would I put the lighter person in the hot seat? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would I put the fair skinned person in the hot seat? Because in my brain, it does 2 things, right? It exposes the source even more, right? And then the other thing that it does is it just makes the life a little harder for the darker person, right? Because now and I can almost guarantee that's where this hot light came in because they thought they needed a fill or something. Now imagine if they just flipped them around. But also the thing is too, like a lot of people forget that, you know, you can use flags. You know what I mean? Like, and when I say flags, I mean like the little ones, the 24 by 36, the 18 by 24, you know? I was gaffing on the Swiss Beats music video long ago. This is a long time ago, like 2 or 3, maybe 4 years ago at this point. Or not gaffing. I wasn't the gaffer. I'm sorry. John Gardner was the gaffer. I was the key grip. John Gardner was the gaffer. And Swanson was the DP, right? And so anyways, it was for Harlem, Godfather Harlem or whatever, right? So anyway, Swiss Beats, a very tall black man, right? And they have these light mats up above him, lighting him, you know, coming down, quarterback cross key kind of thing. And but he's got a shaved head. He's got a nice shiny bald head, right? And there was one part of his head that was really like peeking out, almost like our guy's forehead here, right? He was doing one of these numbers, right? And everybody's running around. And all I kept saying was like, dude, just grab a net, dude. Just get a net. You know, in my brain, 24 by 36 net, boom. But I think why they were wanting to avoid the net is because they were worried that it would look like he's standing under an umbrella or something. But it wasn't that wide of a shot. You know what I mean? It was like, it's like a medium shot, like belly button to the head kind of shot. Like you're not going to notice a 24 by 36 net, you know, what it's doing other than like getting rid of the hot spot, right? So this got me thinking too, like, you know, there are a lot of times where we forget to use nets and flags in general. Again, when I say flags, I'm talking about everything under 4x4, right? Because a lot of times, you know, one time I was helping out my buddy Tim Nye. We were doing one of his movies out in Brooklyn. And, you know, we shot all day long. And then on the ride home, he's like, yeah, you know, what'd you think of some of those setups? Because I was just there kind of helping out. I was mainly just like gimbal operating and stuff. But I was like, yeah, dude, I think, you know, we could have used more flags. And he was like, oh, we had flags. And I'm like, no, we had like we had a 4x4 floppy of Magic Cloth and then a 4x4 of floppy Ultra Bounce. But in my brain, 4x4s and floppies and that shit's not flags, right? That shit's not flags to me. Flags are, what I call flags are the little guys, 24 by 36 or 18 by 24, right? And any time where I do a job and I'm the DP and I'm driving home, and if I think about the scenes, and if there's any scenes where we didn't use flags, I always know that scene's gonna suck, like the way that it's lit. You know, because flags are where we really start shaping and you know, that's where you get crafty with the light, is with the flags. You know what I mean? So if you're ever on a set and you're looking around and there's no flags, then you know that you're just kind of like washing the space, right? You're just kind of like whitewashing the space. I don't know. That's kind of how I've been taught, right? And you know, I was able to kind of like shadow Carlo Mendoza once. I don't even know if that's the right term. I was basically just hanging out on a set that he was DP on. Carlo Mendoza. He's like the fucking Roger Deakins of the Philippines, right? And this was a long time ago. This was like maybe like 2017, right? When I was just kind of starting to get into camera. And I'm just like hanging out on this it was a little HBO movie. And dude, there was just flags everywhere. It was insane. It was like fucking George of the Jungle with flags everywhere. And I was like, wow, this is intense, dude. And I have never seen anybody do that since. I honestly haven't. And not to his level. And there's certainly been things where I've tried to incorporate that many flags, but I don't even know if I've ever been on a job where we had the budget to have that many flags. It was gnarly, dude. But it really says a lot. And if you want to know the movie, let me see if I can find the movie. It's just a little HBO movie. Oh, I wish I could remember. I think it's called something weird like Mother Tongue or something. Actually, you know what? I can just search his name. I believe it's Carlo Mendoza. Yeah, dude. But you want to talk about a master of light, you know? And maybe there'll be some nice screen grabs of this film that I can show you. Anyways, the point is, right, if you're using flags, you know, that's a nice way for you to kind of address those issues, you know, like with Swiss Beats in the hot spot on his head, or our guy here, for instance. You know, that could be so simple. That could be so simple to just dull that down, even if you wanted it there. But again, that's why I say, well, maybe there's a point for that. This is a test, right? Maybe they wanted to see, like, what happens if we just blast light into the black dude's forehead? You know, wait, I don't know why the fuck they do the things they do, but I'm guessing there was a point because it's a test, right? I would hope there's a point to it, right? But in my brain, I go, Jesus, fuck, dude, like, let's just soften it off, dude. Like, just bring a little net in here or something. Bring a little or something, you know? I don't mean to, like, keep tearing shit into the fucking stupid camera test, by the way. You know what I mean? It's just, we're just talking, right? We're just shitting, you know, shitting the shit here, as they say, you know, but I think there is something to be said about that because, you know, a lot, here it is. Oh, it's called Lonely Blue Night. Wow, I was way off. What did I call it? Mother Tongue? Jesus, dude. Lonely Blue Night. This is a rad little movie. But I mean, this is classic too. They shot this on the Arri Alexa. Look at this. I have some great BTS of this. I was like shooting so much. Oh, there's only one photo. Oh, dude, that's a bummer, bro. Oh man, I'm so bummed out, dude. Look at this. Oh man. But this, you know, you kind of get the idea. I mean, look at that. Just look. I'm looking at what you guys are looking at right now on the live stream. That looks like a goddamn painting. It looks like I'm showing you guys a fucking painting. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Do you get goosebumps? Are you getting the goosebumps, bro? Because you should be. Because that's Carlo Mendoza for you right there. Hot damn, dude. God damn, that's so good. That is so good, dude. Look at that. You might have to turn your brightness up a little bit because there's a little girl over here playing the violin in the foreground. Dude. And you want to know what? This was shot on location. This is at an actual restaurant. Dude, come on now, dude. Come on. And when I tell you this dude was like jungle gym with the amount of flags everywhere, I should try to find the BTS, dude. I'm telling you guys though, you know, that's there's a lot to be said about that, right? Don't forget to use your flags, man. It's just, you know, think about the way you could just cut the shit. Just start bringing it in and just cut it. Just make fucking dark shafts, whatever, dude. Just start fucking around, you know? That's literally what Roger Deakins does. That's literally what Carlo Mendoza does. Anyways, we're getting out of the weeds here. Let's see. The Sony log used to jam most of its data in the upper portion of the curve. I don't know if that's true anymore. Nikons used to meter darker than the actual shots. I shot Nikon until their D850. Yeah, I know. And plus, dude, don't forget, guys, this is a brand new formula, right? This is a brand new formula of red. This isn't the same red that's in your Komodos. This isn't the same Nikon RAW that's in your Nikons. This is a new flavor of RAW here, right? So don't forget about that either. Damn, did I have my phone on silent? Have you guys been calling? Nah, no one calling in tonight. They're like, damn, Justin's all jacked up, boy. Don't get in there. The stand-ins are there so they can adjust the camera. I work on 9/11 Nashville. They are called first and second team, 100%. By the way, I finally watched one battle to another today. I was lucky to watch a 7mm film print version here in Atlanta. Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. We saw it in IMAX at opening weekend. Amazing film. People are dogging on it too. It's like, damn, dude, seriously. Vitaphone. Blocking can often be a creative process. Stand-ins have no input. 100%. Yes, I already addressed that. Yo, that hair light they put on him looks so crazy. It looks like a spotlight. That's what I'm saying. It is wild, dude. It's a wild choice. Okay. Oh, wow. Something jumped ahead here. Yo, I meant the skin tones in the car and the skin tones in baby scene. Yeah, 100%. Am I able to just use a regular light meter I've used for film photography or video? I don't think so, dude, because, you know, you're not going to have like 24 frames per second and all of that. You could certainly just use it for, you know, I mean, I guess you could. Like, it's gonna get weird if you start jumping shutter angle. Because you know, I don't know if you're on a camera that has an actual shutter angle, you're gonna have to do that math in your head real quick. Basically, change shutter angle to shutter speed. But if you're just staying at 180 the whole time, I guess you could do it. I guess you could do it. And that is why I buy everything myself and I don't accept brand deals. Yo, straight facts, straight spotlight, LOL. I gotta love it when these big camera YouTubers say, then don't watch the videos when they get triggered. Meanwhile, their videos get shoved down our feeds every day. Yeah, I mean, hey, look, here's the thing too. They don't actually mean that because they know if they don't get the views, they don't get the deals, and then they don't get the money, right? Like that's everyone knows. Like they need the audience. We all need the audience. Every YouTuber needs an audience, right? So for them to say that, it, you know, that's just, I mean, what else can they say, you know? The manufacturers don't want you making their equipment looking flawed, so the reviewers all compensating the test. It's not a real test. 100%, bro. Okay, just a side note, are you Italian? Johnny Rainbow, no, but I grew up watching Goodfellas, um, and Casino and Heat and Dog Day Afternoon, basically, and Godfather trilogy. When I was in high school, I was obsessed with De Niro and Pacino. That's all I wanted to do. So I'm probably like, those guys are kind of like my digital fathers. So that might be why it seems that I kind of act that way. Pre-digital and even modern big films often blow critical focus. Great directors will go with performance over technical accuracy. It's pretty surprising how many big films have soft shots. Yeah, Vitaphone, you're not wrong about that, bro. And you know what? Even in my own little stuff, guys, I'm excited, man. I have something coming for this channel that's it's pretty different from anything I've ever done here on this channel before. It is it's a short film that I directed it. I wrote it, but I'm in it. Like I am like I'm the star of the thing. And so shout out to Miguel Ordez. He shot it for me on my FX6, and he's currently color grading it. So I'm man, it's gonna be. I'm so excited about it. I just hope people watch it. Speaking of which, there's a new feature now where you can hype videos. Like any of the YouTubers that you're into, you can help our videos get more audience by hitting this hype button. Like I don't think it's on the live streams, but it's on the actual video. So like when because I'm so stoked about this little short film, guys. I just hope that it does what I think. Like I hope that it has the impression that I think it does. Do you know what I mean? Cause like, you know, I've been out of the acting game for a long time, guys. So I'm like super self-conscious, and I've never, you know, acting was always like the thing that I knew no one could touch me on, because like, I was just like, no, but I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So like, you know, it's basically like acting is the only thing I've ever had any confidence in ever. You know what I mean? So, and for this little movie for me to have so many insecurities about it, I think it's just because I've been out of the acting game for so long, you know. But I'm stoked to get it out, and I don't know why I just thought of that. But somebody says, "Oh yeah, you were talking about soft focus." Yeah, because even when because Marianne and I were the editors of it, right? Obviously, we're gonna edit our own movies, you know. But you know, and there's a lot of nice shots, but there's so much that like it just doesn't make sense, right? Because or also there's other things, yeah, like you said, technical things you got to cut around, or just like whatever, like, you know, like, yeah. So 100%, some of the best super technically accurate shots tend to get left on the cutting room floor, because 100% it does boil down to not just the performance and stuff like that, but also maybe just in the reality of like the cut they have to make, you know, because, you know, whatever the next cut they're trying to get to, you know, that's going to be a deciding factor as well, you know, because, you know, Denzel's not going to do every single take like a robot, you know, so this take might have been the only one they had where he was looking at him saying what he was saying to him, and they're like, damn, that's all we got, so we got to use it, you know, because the other takes he might have been looking somewhere else, you know. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of it about that. It flattens her a little as well. Yeah, and maybe that's the point, right? Maybe that's the goal, to just like flatten her out and, you know, kind of overexpose her and kind of overexpose both of them, kind of, honestly. It's literally the most extreme situation. Yo, never noticed until I started working and know how the sausage is made. In some ways, it's mangled my ability to lose myself in films. They got to be truly great to turn off analytical filmmaker brain. Yeah, Yeah, it is true. You know what's funny with me, like with the colorblind thing, like movies like this, One Battle After Another, or like any of these films that really like lean into like the great, like Smashing Machine is like that, like all these like Uncut Gems, like all the more like trendy hipster movies that like are either shot on film or made to look like they were shot on film because of my like inability with like saturation levels and stuff with my eyeballs. Like I I don't have filmmaker brain at all when I'm watching something like this because I can't really see it as well, except this is like an example where I could, obviously, because the light is so strong. But the majority of this movie to me just looks kind of all one way, to where I get lost in the story even more. Does that make sense? So like if something is like perfectly Hollywood polished, all I'm paying attention to is like everything technical. But for whatever reason, if it has this more like nostalgic feel to it, the shit in my brain just turns off. Is that crazy or what? Do you guys experience that? Because like we literally just saw Smashing Machine last night, right? And I thought the same thing. I'm like, I didn't for once think about like the lighting in that movie at all. But also it could just be because of my eyeballs have that defect. I just like it has to be really like I don't know, like what's a movie where I could tell, like Nope, right? Nope looks very Hollywood to me. And yeah, then I start kind of thinking about, oh, how'd they do that, blah, 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 you know but when I'm watching something like One Battle After Another or like Smashing Machine, it's like wow, like my brain doesn't even comprehend what it is, maybe. And maybe that's why, where I'm such a sucker for nostalgia, I'm just like, oh wow, I'm really here, this is real life now. I don't know, dude. I can't explain it. It's crazy to me. um maybe there's a part of it that just taps into my emotions, and then like my analytical side just goes "Brr," it just goes mute for a while. Do you guys experience that? Holy shit, dude. Even on pro sets, they don't use nets and flags. They have them, but I rarely see them. That's what I mean. You don't see them too often, dude. That's what I mean. You don't really see them used that often. You really don't. And I think it's, I don't know, bro. You saw the painting that Carlo Mendoza made. You know what I mean? So I just think there's something to be said about that. That's I was just trying to like, raise awareness of that. I swear, just swap them out. It would have made the shot way better. Yeah, 100%. Exactly. I said the same thing. Maybe they don't feel like they have enough time to tweak shots with flags. It could be that. I just think that people, look, everybody notices different shit. You know what I'm saying? Different stuff is going through everybody's brain differently. Because it's even happened to me when I have a gaffer. The few times that I've been blessed to have, a gaffer with me, not a lot. I can probably count on both hands how many times I've had a gaffer, right? And that's just because most of the jobs they work on are pretty low budge, right? And that's not true. That's not. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that. Okay. Let me rephrase. I guess what I'm actually trying to say is that most of the time we don't have a package, right? Very rarely do we get like another van, right? And it's like, okay, that's what I mean, right? Because there's plenty of times I've had gaffers where we had to use what I can bring, so I had to take that back. But what I mean is I can probably count on both hands how many times I've been the DP where we had like an additional van package, right? Like a true G&E package. I don't think more than 10 times that and that just shows you like how much low budget stuff I do. But I think it could just boil down to that too. That, yeah, we don't have time to set all this shit up. That is what happens to me a lot. We don't have time to make it cool. We don't have time to make it beautiful. We don't have time to do anything really, if you really think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just have to try your best, and you're going a million miles a minute, and everybody's doing the job of like 5 to 10, or at least 5 people, right? Like usually, like on the low budget things that I do, it is true. Like each person is probably doing the workload of like at least 4 people, you know? And that's why, a lot of guys that I work with, they really hate working the jobs with me, because they know like, dude, Justin takes all these like crazy jobs. And that's just because, I do a lot of narrative stuff, and the narrative shit doesn't have any money. Everyone knows that until you get to like this level, like they just don't. They don't have the money, right? So, I can't bring everyone on the fucking, UCLA job because the UCLA doesn't need fucking 10 people, So it's just different, in my line of stuff. So I can 100%, get in line with that. We don't have time to put the flags up, which sucks because if you did, you have time to shape everything. You have time to build those pools of light, those pools of dark. You have time to, finesse it and make it sexy. And yeah, we don't all get that luxury, that's for sure. But I'm just bringing awareness to it, like guys, we can't be, because I can't be the only one driving home going, man, fuck, dude, we should have like put a flag there. We should have fucking netted that off. That's what I do when I drive home from these narrative jobs that I do. I'm not like so stoked, like, wow, what a great fun day. No, dude, I'm driving home, bugging the fuck out, going through my brain about every fucking thing that was done wrong, dude. That's all I fucking do. Dude, it was just like when we did the chair. I'll never forget, dude. Like when we rapped on the chair, that's Curry Barker's little viral movie. Dude, that thing has 9 million views, by the way. Dude, when we rapped on that, it was like 4 days. We shot the whole little movie in 4 days. We rapped on it, and I remember Curry was like, dude, yeah, so how do you think it turned out? He's all like super eager. It was like his first thing that he made. I think it was. I don't know. He maybe done like a couple things before that. And the first, and I'm so like fucking, like I'm that, I'm the weird guy. I'm not in tune with people's emotions. Like I'm not in tune with like, oh, should I be careful about what I say? Like, I don't know how to do that. Right. So like, if someone asks me like, how do you think it went? I don't start like thinking before I answer. Like I just answer, and I'm just like, oh, dude, I think a lot of it is shit, dude. Like, or something like that, or something to that effect that I said, where I was just like, fuck, dude, we fucked up a lot of shit, But like, and then I instantly, like, as soon as I said it, I just saw his eyes and like, it looked like I crushed his soul, And then like my buddy Tristan was like, oh, he's talking about the lighting and stuff, So like, and then like he had to kind of come in and save the day. Superboy had to save the day again. But that's because my brain, like I just call things how I see it. I mean, that's what gets me in trouble all the time here on the YouTube. I don't have a filter. I don't have that function. You know what I mean? So like but so that's how I drive home. I drive home just like kicking myself in the ass the whole way home, thinking about how we could have done everything better. And yeah, the reality is it's like, well, we could have, but we didn't have the resources and we certainly didn't have the manpower. There's no reason to kick yourself in the ass for it, but it's just good to have awareness of it because the more that it's just like any other muscle, So like something that I started doing is always having my road rags kit. And then that helps having the actual road rags where you can fold all the 24 by 36 Matthews makes it. I showed it in my one lighting video. I've showed it a couple of times actually. It's a little kit, road rag kit. And there's like four or five flags you can like fit in this little roll up case. You can throw it under your seat for crying out loud. Like I made it a goal to take that with me everywhere. Right. And I try to incorporate some sort of flag in the scene if I can. And again, it's like, yeah. And the only thing is like, it's like, okay, we don't have time for it. But if you it's just like any other muscle, it's the same way like how you get with floppies. It's like, well, dude, you can't say that about floppies. Like I can't because I always have fucking floppies. Like I always have floppies, right? So I don't want you guys to get twisted. Like what's a flag? Like, because I know like some people when they say flags, like I'm not talking about floppies. I'm not talking about like when I say flags, I'm talking about everything smaller than a 4x4, right? To me, that's a flag. I don't call floppies flags, right? I always have floppies, right? We always have floppies. But the reason why is because I made that part of my process. Like no, the floppy is just as important, if not more important than the goddamn lights. You know what I mean? So we need floppies. Like a minimum of 2 floppies, like anywhere from 2 to 8 floppies. I always have floppies, right? So if I could get the flags ingrained into my workflow the way I have floppies ingrained into my workflow, I know the image could get better. I just know that because every time I've had the flags and used them, it is just a million times better, right? It's a million times better, right? For a lot of different reasons. Mainly in terms of shaping the light. That's obviously what they do, right? And I just know for me, that's something that's a goal for me, right? So that's why I say if we all make that a goal, I think we could start. You may see better results, right? Because you just don't have light everywhere and just relying on the floppy to kind of soak some of it up. It's like, okay, but now what if you brought the flags in? Then you can start shaping it up, cutting it up, chopping it up, right? That's how they get the pools, right? That's how they get the light to dark pattern, right? They're not doing that just because, like, oh, it's like it's a little more nuanced than just like a dome on a, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, they gotta have those little little choppers in there. Just something to think about. Just something to think about. So I know what you're saying. Like, oh, we don't always have time to do that, and I agree with you. But I think the problem is like we're not making the time for it. You know what I mean? Because if you made the time for it the same way that you make the time to put the light up, well, there you go, right? You couldn't go, well, fuck, we didn't get one light on. We didn't get one light on. Well, we didn't have time to turn on a light. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what I mean. Anyways, wow, we getting down some rabbit holes, boy. I don't know how this got so crazy tonight, boy. Let's see where we were. I swear I just swapped them out. Maybe they don't feel like they have enough time. To your point, I almost see zero nets and almost no flags on the low budget stuff. I think it's because there's almost no YouTube meta around flags and nets. Most of the sets I'm on are from YouTube school. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I guess that could be part of it. I think that, yeah, maybe that could be it. Yeah, not enough people talk about it. I think it's just because it's just one of those. Maybe I should. But here's the thing. Like, yes, then I go. My brain goes. Maybe I should do a video on flags, and I would get like 20 views. That's fine. It doesn't matter how many views it gets. But I'm just thinking in terms of like maybe that's why, because people maybe can't quite. I'm sure Meet the Gaffer and those guys have done their fair share of videos on nets and flags. I would hope so. Mother tongue sounds like lonely blue light, kind of. Yo, it's a skill to shape light and not so much using it, but how you take it away. 100%, Jason Dohas, 100%. Yo, Trevor says, when I shot product photography, half the room was flags and it took hours to do. It's fun though. Yeah, photographers do a lot. Yeah, you remember when you'd get the kits and it would have the little dots? Like there's little dots and the flags are like all crazy shaped. I remember when I got that kit, I'm like, what the fuck is all this shit for? And it was like for product photography. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know anything about that shit. Yo, just based on your digital fathers, you are Italian. I approve as an Italian. Thank you, Johnny Ramo. That's rad, dude. Dude, Donnie Brasco, man. That's like one of my favorite movies of all time. I was just thinking about, dude, I think about Donnie Brasco all the time. Pretty much any time I see a dude wearing boots, I always think of Donnie Brasco. I'm like, that motherfucker's got a tape recorder in his boot. Oh, shit, dude. Yo, love is a battlefield. Love is a battlefield 69. He says, or they say, when things are done really well, you don't notice it. 100%, bro. You see daylight different or shadows? Baxter S. Bugatti, you see daylight different or shadows? You mean in these films? I think just everything. I think it fucks with like my contrast levels. I think it fucks with I don't know. Maybe I don't even know how to explain it. It's like the same like, like anytime I tell someone I'm colorblind, it's like, like, man, like 90% of the time they'll pick something up and be like, what color is this? And I just look at them, bro. I'm like, dude, come on, bro. Like, dude, I've been doing that since I was like 8 years old. You know what I mean? Because that's when you find out you're colorblind. And it's like, dude, you get so sick of that shit, bro. You're like, and also it's like important. Like people don't realize, like, dude, when you have been colorblind for so long, you kind of figure out in your own way what the colors are. That doesn't exactly mean that I see them the way that you guys do. You know what I mean? Because people will do that shit to me sometimes too. They'll be like, oh, I thought you couldn't see this color. And I'm like, I can't. They're like, oh, well, whoa, did you guys hear that? They'll be like, and I'll be like, well, I can't, like, but I know what it is. I basically have taught myself what a certain, but here's where it gets tricky, right? Is like when it's like, it gets tricky by the saturation level of it. That's where it gets really tricky for me. And that's why I suffer so bad with skin tones and shadows and things like that, because it's too, when it's on skin, I can't see it at all. Like I can't see red or green on skin at all. Like I just can't, versus like if you had highlighters, and you held up two highlighters and one was pink, I could definitely probably tell you what the pink one was, right? Because it's a fucking highlighter, right? Like I can see the tone when it gets to a certain level. Red, not so much. Funny enough, like red is a even like a highlighter. I still would be like, I don't know, is that red? Like, you know what I mean? Like red's a tricky one for me. But if it's a pink highlighter, I can usually see it. But like pink anywhere else, for instance, I tell everyone this story, but one of my favorite shirts I used to wear all the time. It was like hands down one of my favorite shirts. It was a skateboarder shirt. I loved it, you know, and I wore it all the time. Wore it all the time. And then one day, one of my buddies out here, you know, shout out to Shalaby, he goes, "Yo, Jay, how come you wear that pink shirt all the time?" And I was like, I was trying to think in my head like pink shirt, and I'm like, dude, I don't have any pink shirts. What are you talking about? And he just starts dying laughing. And he goes, "You don't have any pink shirts, Jay?" I go, "No." And like I for the life of me, I could not think of any shirt that I owned that was pink. And he goes, "Motherfucker, you wearing a pink shirt right now." And I was wearing that shirt, and it was my favorite. I was crushed, bro. I was crushed. Because to me, it was like a baby blue. That's what I would have called it. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? And like, yeah, apparently, you know, Marianne, she goes, "Oh, I thought you knew." You know, this was like back, this is like long time ago. This is years ago, like when, you know, I'd only known Marianne for like a year or so. But that's like a famous story I say because like I could not tell that that shirt was pink, you know, so I don't know if it's like a fabric thing or what it was. Um, Anyways, yeah, so you know, it's hard to tell, you know, different nuances and things like that. Um, okay, I think the color design looks great. Okay. How to expose light brown skin tones. Yeah, so again, you know, I can bring up what I brought up earlier here. Let me find it real quick. Um, a way that I taught, you know, a way that you can learn is with EL Zone, right? So so you'll notice dark skin tones, and this is the same with lighter skin tones, right? It's variances of underexposure for darker skin tones, and it's a variance of overexposure for lighter skin tones. You guys can see this, right? Hold on, hold on. Yeah, we're still good, right? So that's kind of a way you can teach yourself, right? So if it's somewhere in the middle, you're not going to put them one or one and a half under. You know, you might just keep them like half under, right? You know what I mean? You just got to kind of learn the gradient scale, but this is the same as any other scale. It's just EL Zone makes it so easy to read and recognize, right? The problem where it gets tricky, and this is why I use the meter so much, is because these EL Zone colors, this gets a little confusing for me of everything I just told you guys about, right? Like this gets very hard for me on the actual shot, right? Because especially when they start bleeding into each other, now for this shot is so like hot. This entire shot is, we've already established if we just look at the middle gray card here, the entire shot is half a stop to one stop over anyways, right? So when it's that much light, it's not that hard, you know, you don't have as much bleeding. I can tell there's variances here, you know. The problem is where it gets trickier is the more nuanced your scene is and the darker the scene gets, it's going to get a lot more difficult to start seeing the variances for my eyeballs. And that's where the meter comes in, right? But anyways, if you wanted to apply this idea of, you know, of the skin tone exposure chart, whatever you want to call this thing, right? You can apply that idea to the meter too, right? You just have to be aware of what your shooting stop is, right? So the way I always look at it is I look at, and this could be wrong, but I think of the T stop, our shooting stop. I usually think of our shooting stop as middle gray, right? So that's how I establish it with the meter. So for instance, in my thing here, I go, okay, my lens is ripped wide open at 1.9 with the settings that we're at, 24 frames per second, 180 degree shutter, 800 ISO, right? So with those settings on this camera, my middle gray is going to be 1.9. Right. So I know that. So in my head, if I have to go, okay, if I'm lighting for, what did you say? It was how to expose light brown skin tone. So light brown, right? So that would, you know, you could put that somewhere around half a stop under, right? So in my brain, I go, okay, I want to be half a stop under 1.9. Now, if you want to get super nerdy about this, you know, you could think about it in true half stops, right? Or usually like if I don't have time to fuck around with that in my brain, I go, okay, so technically a 2, right? And then I go, okay, so half of the 2. So, if you're going to go a full stop, it'd be 1-4. So we want to be somewhere between a 1-4 and a 2, right? For who we're lighting for. If the only person in our shot is this person with the light brown skin tones, right? So I go, okay, yeah. So I know that I want to make sure that somewhere when I do dome to lens, I don't want to be hitting a 2 because that's going to be too bright, right? I want to be somewhere getting closer to that 1-4, right? And that's what I would do. And I would just start dimming it down and until I get somewhere around there. But that you can't stop there, right? Unfortunately, because of what we talked about earlier. I don't know how long you've been on here, but we were talking about earlier about how every camera places middle gray in a different spot, right? Which we've established the Nikon ZR, for whatever reason, they put it at middle gray at damn near a stop over. Anyways, I lost my train of thought. See how that goes, dude? That's why you can't, dude. That's why you can't fuck around, man. Your brain, when you have lived a life like mine, your brain just like you go, wow, yeah, I should have been a little bit more responsible in my 20s, and maybe I could have held on to a little bit more brain power. My brain just completely went out the window, bro. Anyways, so that's generally what I would do. Oh, that's right. So you can't stop at the meter, right? So anyways, okay, lighter brown skin tones. Okay, we're back on track now. See, it takes me a minute there. I have these like brain hiccups. Okay, so I go, okay, we want to be somewhere between a 2 and a 1-4. So let's pretend like I don't know, like maybe like something like a 1-6, maybe. Let's say 1-6. We want to, but we're actually a 1-9, right? So maybe we want to, maybe like a 1-5. 1-5, 1-6. I want to be somewhere around 1-5, 1-6, right? However, once you get that on the meter, you do want to double check what the actual camera is doing, right? Because that's how I got back to the Nikon, is because every camera's meter is not going to be the same as like, because this meter doesn't have anything to prove, right? This meter has one job and one job only, to tell me what middle gray is, right? That's it. That's its only job. The cameras, they're a little bit more nuanced than that, right? They have certain codecs. They have certain dynamic range, right? They have certain things that, they have to be responsible for, right? So the engineers just do what they do with them, right? So that's really the reality of it, right? Whereas the meter is never, the meter has nothing to prove. So it's always going to tell you what middle gray is regardless. But that's why you go, okay, so if my brown skin tones are where I want them to be, about half a stop under middle gray, I do need to make sure what's going on with the camera though, right? So that's another way to do it. Now you could do that with a spot meter or whatever. And it's pretty simple, I mean, you could just watch it and wait till it says like -0.3 or -0.7, and then be like, okay, if you're a spot and if you're on the key side, right? You put the spot meter on the key side and go, okay, I guess that's pretty good, right? I don't know. That's one way you could do it. Or you just look at the waveform, right? That's quicker than spot metering and moving your camera around. You just look at the waveform and go, okay, let me make sure that, he's not rising way up, right? Just because think, the middle gray is you guys can't see this. Hold on. Because if you're looking at a waveform, and you get your guy or your subject with the darker skin tones, if they're way up here, if their face is way up here, then like, ooh, I probably shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So you just, okay, now like if that was happening, I don't think any camera would be that far off. But if that was the case, you would be like, wow, this camera is way off, and then you would have to adjust accordingly. But the good thing is when you do that, it's not like you got to do that every time. Once you know like what the camera is doing in regards of what the meter is doing, then you just know. You, like with me, I make a mental note. Okay, yeah, when I'm middle gray on the meter, I know that the Sony is around 1/3 to 2/3 over. I just know that. I just know that it's part of my workflow, right? So whatever your first setup is with that particular camera or whatever, that talent, you just know then. You would just readjust, make a mental note, and you could go on with your day. And it would be a super fast way of working, because then you would know, just boom, 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 right? For instance, if I was doing the person with the brown skin tones with my camera, knowing that this camera is usually around 1/3 to 2/3 over versus what a meter is, right? I would know then. I go, okay, so if the meter is telling me where I want to be around 1/6, but yet the camera is actually above that. So the camera is actually going to be like a 2.5, right? So then you go, oh, okay. So I know when this is saying 1.6, the camera is actually metering a 2.5. So then you just know, like, okay, you just have to make that mental note in your head that, and this is where it gets a little fucked up, because then you go, okay, so now I'm going to meter everything to 2.5. It's like, no, because you're going the wrong way, right? You're basically going the wrong way there. So this is why, sometimes you could get in the weeds with meters, and maybe that's why some people just abandon it, because they're like, no, it's just so simple, just turn on the waveform, turn on the EL zone, whatever. And yeah, I think EL zone was a game changer in that regard, certainly for the skin tones, right? Because we just saw that with this, right? I mean, that's a game changer. It was for me anyways, of being able, the problem is when you suffer with, the kind of hue deficiency that I have, I can't always use it. I can't always rely on it, because not everything I'm lighting is a stopover. I'm not doing Good Morning America all the time. Sometimes we're doing stuff a little more nuanced, right? So that's where the meter actually comes into more help. Certainly in terms of consistency, if you're doing shot, reverse shot, you're doing multiple setups in the same scene, and I'm trying to rely on that EL zone, and I can't see the gradations. I don't know what's going on. Like, all I can do is rely on my meter at that point, and away we go. Anyways, how to expose. Okay. You cannot do the I wish I could have, would have in post. You have to do the here and now on set. 100%, bro. Lighting design is so fucking important. 100%. No, that's so true, Johnny Ramo. Yeah, that is the main thing. If you can start getting it, everything in your muscle, right? So if I say to myself, like, that's it, dude, I got to use the flex. I got to make time for the flex, or whatever it is. We got to make time for the eye light. You just do it. You go, okay, the eye light's it's got to be there, dude. It's got to be there. It's the same thing that happens with, whatever it is, right? You make the time for it, right? Or you don't. And then you cry about it later. Yo, red looks orange. What does red look like for you? Red looks orange to you, Baxter Bugatti? Blue's one of the easier ones. Like, this gentleman is wearing a blue shirt, correct? Blue is an easy one for me. I don't really suffer from blue, really. I don't know. That's not true. Maybe his shirt's not blue, because also, like, I've been told many times that I guess I can't see purple, because I don't understand what purple is. I've never been able to understand what purple is. I honestly haven't. And another problem is blue and green are the same, apparently, because there's been lots of times where I can't see green quite the same way that other people can, from what I've been able to figure out. Because that's basically what happens when you're colorblind. You live your life going, what are people calling red? Right? Like, that's just what certainly as a kid, right? Because, they found out, I think I was like in 3rd grade when they started like realizing that I was colorblind. And that's when I went to the special class. No, no, but I think when it starts that young, you start learning how to adapt. You start learning, like, how to kind of mask up, as they say. I've had to learn how to create a lot of masks for myself. That's just part of my life, because I'm not built like most people. My experience in school was very different than most of yours. I can 100% bet money on that. My experience in school was very, very weird one, because I just was a different type of beast to deal with in school, and I just was a different kind of human being, I guess. and then having colorblind on top of that, when you were the type of kid that I was at first, I was getting in trouble for it. Like, literally, I was getting in trouble for being colorblind. And that's what starts the stigma around it, because you're like, what the fuck am I? Because you're already a hellraiser, right? So teachers, when they see you, they think you're lying. Right? Because they know, like, oh, he's a little badass kid, and now he's going to sit here and try to, like, be funny and lie about colors and stuff to just, I don't know why. Why would I lie about that? I don't know. But that's what happens when you're a kid. In the time, I grew up in the 90s, right? So it was different back then, kids weren't protected as well as they are nowadays, So, I was already the bad kid. And then they go, oh, fuck, now he's lying about colors just to be even more of a bad kid. So that's what starts creating the stigma around it. But anyways, you just start to learn how to adapt and go, okay, so what is everyone else calling this color, right? And then that's basically how I learned a lot of the colors. But the problem is that it doesn't always work, obviously, because eventually I'm not, you can only wear a mask for so long until someone walks up and pulls the mask up over your head, and then you're like, oh fuck, you know. And we've seen that happen a lot here on the YouTube channel, where I'll make something, and the colors look completely normal to me, and yeah, it never fails. Like people will always message me. It's usually people I know, like people that I know will be like, "Yo, Justin, your skin's like super red there, bro." People will literally reach out to me and let me know. So there are ways that I've learned how to, and obviously vector scope is a good one because you can learn how to read the vector, right? We can do that, and this is something that helps me sometimes, but this has fucked me too, you know. But this is, this is in line with like learning colors at a numerical value pretty much, right? So then you're like, okay, but even then, it still has led me astray too, because it's different between a feel of something versus like this fucking semantics of it, you know what I mean? Yeah, dude, it's a rough pill to swallow, Trauma session now, bro. Oh shit, dude. Your resume is extensive, man. So dope. Hype Williams is fire, and I love Belly as well. I have to bounce. Have a good night. These lives are dope. Thank you, Jason DeHaas. Yo, when you've lived a life like mine, you're a 70-year-old war veteran. I feel like when I look like one. Where was I? I have a funny story before we get out of here. Someone, this is a crazy ass thing, dude. I forget where I was, but someone said that I'm like Benjamin Button. And for a minute, I was like, wait, what does that even mean? Like, I had to try to figure that one out. Like, and I was like, at first I was like, oh, they say I'm ugly. I look like because the first thing I thought of was Benjamin Button. He's a little baby, And you're like, what the fuck, dude? But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, wait, I think that was their way of saying I was immature. Like say like, dude, this dude looks super old, but he acts like a fucking teenager, which is probably, that's all part of it. That's why you can't be fucking around when you're a kid, All right, guys. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I thought his shirt was blue. It was pretty easy to see. What's up, buddy? Sorry I ran late to the party. Lorax in the house. Yeah, dude, we're just winding down now, honestly, brother. You probably have to rewind this one. This one was a little wild, a little crazy. We didn't really talk about what I was hoping we would talk about because as always, I go down too many tangents. I got a little heated in my passion, as always. But I think the message is there regardless. I think we talked a lot about different things to do and different tactics. And yeah, I guess that's it, guys. Unless there's anything else. Lorax, sorry, buddy. You got here just in time for the rap party, I guess. Anyways, guys, hit the like button on your way out. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for the support. Be on the lookout for that short film. It's called Dead Line, and we out.